Hey everybody, this is Austin Hill-Shaw, founder of Creativity Matters and author of The Shoreline of Wonder on Being Creative. Right now we're in Indian summer in the Bay Area, which is an amazing time where the fog and the marine layer of the summertime starts to abate. And we start to have in September and October these kind of beautiful balmy days and even evenings that are kind of rare around here. And this weekend is also a weekend where a festival is going on called the Bay Area Vibez Festival. And one of my favorite music performers of all time, DJs, who goes by the name of Bassnectar, is actually playing this weekend. And it's a type of music that for me has been had a really powerful influence on my understanding the world in a lot of different ways by kind of immersing myself in his music. And today we're going to tie together a lot of different things that are very meaningful for me. Like one, my favorite electronic music act of all time. Two, my favorite philosophies in terms of one of my favorite philosophies in terms of understanding the world and understanding the purpose of being a human being. And also we're going to talk about the highest expression of creativity, something that I call self-expression. And we're going to tie these all together, hopefully in a very succinct manner, so that you can kind of understand the power of this topic. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about Bassnectar. Bassnectar is the brainchild of a person named Lorin Ashton. And Lorin Ashton is a Bay Area native. He was born and raised in San Jose, which is in the South Bay. And I've said before, I'm a Colorado native and moved out here to attend the University of California, Berkeley when I was 18. When I was 19 years old, in October of 1989, I was sitting on the steps of Sproul Plaza, which is the center plaza kind of in the Bay Area. It's a place where actually a lot of those protests and the free speech movement took place right on those steps. I was sitting on those sort of historic steps there, and I've been doing a lot of running at the time. And suddenly I felt this sort of spasm, that felt like it was coming in my hindquarters. And I looked up and I realized that everybody else was having the same spasm. And basically the Loma Prieta earthquake, a 6.9, 7.0 earthquake, was underway at the time. And so, first of all, I'm surrounded by brick and concrete, and I'm feeling the shaking motion. But what I'll never forget is this experience of being lifted and set back down. Like as though a waterway was moving through the concrete. It was incredible, and it was totally mind-bending. So it's interesting because that was in 1989, and then in 2006 I started to hear Lorin's music, again Bassnectar, playing at different festivals, sometimes at Burning Man, other smaller festivals such as Lightning in a Bottle. And I hadn't had a draw to electronic music at that time, but there seemed something very familiar about that music. And as I listened more deeply, and as I was writing The Shoreline of Wonder, I actually ran into Lorin and I said, hey, can I interview you for this book I'm writing? He said, oh, I'd love to do that. But he was busy growing his own following, and that never quite happened. But then after I had a time, like a couple years went by, and I thought I would ask him, I ran into him in a place in Berkeley, and I just had one question for him. I said, where were you during the Loma Prieta earthquake? And he said, wow, I was, because I knew he was from San Jose, and he said, yeah, I was an 11-year-old boy, and I was in my car with my mom when that thing hit, and that was my first experience of bass. So you have to understand about Bassnectar's music is it's all about low frequencies and the buildup of energy and it's almost like mathematics and frequencies, not unlike what happens within an earthquake where you have different types of waves moving through the Earth's surface. So it's a really powerful music, and that's what I like it. It's very cathartic. It's cathartic when you go in there and you hear this music, and the performances are amazing, very high energy, but I listen to it all the time when I'm driving around in my car because there's something about listening to that loud music, and I put in earbuds, to protect my ears, but I listen to it loud because it seems to create a reset button for me in my own life. All the things that I have going on, it seems to create some sort of a reset button for me. So let's bring in, the question is, why is that so? Why is that? Well, I'd like to bring this up for, first of all, this the perennial philosophy okay? The perennial philosophy is basically something that was around in the Middle Ages, and it was a bunch of people that were getting together, at a time where all these wars are happening, and they were interested in the commonalities among religion. They're wanting to know, let's not see what's dividing us. Let's see what unites us. What are the things that unite us in terms of what people are seeking through congregation, through prayer, through religious services, and those sorts of things. And what they stumbled upon, and which is summed up by Aldous Huxley in his book, which came out in the 1950s, was, there's basically 4 points. And I put them in my book, The Shoreline of Wonder, because I thought it was so important. I'm going to read from this just so that we can have a little bit of context. And again, we're going to get back to the electronic music in just a sec. So what Aldous Huxley discovered is that from the perennial philosophers is that the phenomenal world of matter and of individualized consciousness, the world of things and animals and humans and even gods, is the manifestation of a divine ground within which all partial realities have their being, and apart which they would be non-existence. So this first idea is that there is basically kind of a world beyond this world that is maintaining this world, a world by which this world arises from, and so that's what the perennial philosophers called the divine ground. This divine ground that supports the manifest world that we live in. Okay. Second point. Human beings are capable of not merely knowing about the divine ground. By inference, they can also realize its existence by a direct intuition superior to discursive reasoning. This immediate knowledge unites the knower with that which is known. So here, Aldous is talking about the fact that, this divine ground that's out there is not something that we can know intellectually. It's beyond thought. However, we can drop into the experience of feeling and experiencing it. It's a different sort of awareness, and it's the same sort of awareness that goes along with creative insight. Those aha moments are actually moments by which we stop thinking for a moment so that we can experience a more profound awareness and understanding of the world, okay? And that's what he's saying right here, is that, that we as human beings have this capability of knowing this divine ground, okay? Here's the third point. Humankind possesses a double nature, a phenomenal ego and an eternal self, a self with a capital S, which is the inner human, the spark, the spirit, the spark of divinity within the soul. It is possible for a human, if he or she so desires, to identify himself with the spirit and therefore with the divine ground, which is the same or like nature with spirit. So what they're saying here, Aldous Huxley and the perennial philosophers, is it's like, okay, humankind, we have an ego identity. That's what the psychologists would say. But there's also this thing called the eternal self, which is an awareness that goes beyond our individual identity. And that is also something that I found to be the case within creativity. The joy of creativity is that sometimes we are using our egos, right, in order to bring forth projects and to plan and carry out those plans. But the beauty of creativity, both in the experience of insight and in self-expression, is that we're also relying on a greater awareness, an awareness that is not limited to thoughts, that transcends thought, and also is the place from which thoughts arise, okay? And that's what he's calling basically the self. Carl Jung, also the pioneering psychologist, also said that the self is this thing that is responsible for archetypes, right? It's that connection that we have with everything out in the world beyond just our individualized consciousness, okay? So here's the fourth point that Aldous makes and the perennial philosophers made. Humankind's life on Earth has only one end and purpose: to identify themselves with their eternal self, with the capital S, and so to come with unitive knowledge of the divine ground. So what Aldous Huxley is saying here is like the reason, the purpose of living at its core is for us to transcend our sense of separation, our ego identity, and enter into that experience of profound connectedness that is available in each and every moment of our lives. And that is precisely what I see with creativity, okay? So we've talked about the electronic music, we've talked about the perennial philosophy. Now let's bring this into the idea of creativity, okay? And what it really means to be, what is the apex of being a creator? Well, for those who have followed me, you know that my definition of creativity is connecting with the world and affecting it in a meaningful way, okay? Connecting with the world brings forth the experience of insight. And it's really a mystical experience, okay? And Aldous Huxley talks about this. At the bottom he says, the perennial philosophy and interpretation of the great mystics East and West, okay? Mysticism is that unitive experience with something larger than ourselves. And it doesn't have to be confined to religion. We can think of, for example, Jonas Salk, who discovered the vaccine for polio, who identified himself with the virus itself, to understand the virus in order to come up with a way of coming up with a vaccine for that virus, okay? So it doesn't have to be strictly religious. It can be applied to all sorts of awarenesses by which we transcend our own sense of self and we merge with something either larger or different than us, okay? So again, that's the experience of insight. Manifestation is the service and the way in which we give those insights form, the way that we bring those into the world, all right? And what separates creative manifestation from just getting things done and being on the hamster wheel is constantly rechecking in with that vision and that experience of insight that has set you on the path in the first place, okay? Then finally we have the apex of creativity, which is I call self-expression. And I spell it also with a capital S, self-expression, because I'm referencing in my definition of creativity the divine self that the perennial philosophers were talking about. It is that when you're in a sense of self-expression, when you're in that space of creative flow, you feel something way bigger than yourself moving through you. It can happen in sports where you have this amazing understanding and awareness of the playing field around you. For example, my younger sister, who's 18 years younger than me, was a phenomenal lacrosse player, and she was a 3-time All-American. And watching her on the field, I mean, she just had this incredible awareness of what was going to happen almost before it happened. And it was, you know, it was that sense of self-expression, just a bigger awareness than what you can call, you know, thinking alone. But it also happens in performances. You know, I think of, I've used this example before, Beyonce during the Super Bowl a while back, where she's just, you know, there's tens of thousands of people and millions of people watching, and there she is, just like one woman just crushing it, like channeling, like unbelievably powerful performance. You see it in great speakers, you see it in great healers, but is that sense of, again, something bigger than yourself moving through you. And of course it comes in the form of dance. Dance is one of the greatest ways to practice and experience self-expression. And that is what I love so much about the music of Bassnectar, because the low frequencies, and again, Lorin's initial insight and that feeling and experience of the Loma Prieta earthquake, right? Being close to the, you know, twice as close to the epicenter being in San Jose that I was. So experience like this, almost like just, how to say, the singularity of force overwhelming the car, and like the crazy cataclysmic feeling of like, wow, the earth is elastic, the earth is changing, and this is the expression of the earth's music on some levels. So here's a person, his 11-year-old boy, now he's in his 30s, who's been basically creating this music for, what is it now, over 2 decades right now, trying to figure out ways of bringing forth that initial experience, that initial power. And so when you go to one of his performances, one of his, and see his music, it is like amazing. And that's what I love about it so much, is just when I'm in there hearing those rolling bass lines, it's an experience of that self-expression just in action, that overwhelming power of bass, and this music's inspired by the tectonics and the elasticity of the earth itself being channeled through these rhythms and sounds and clips and glitches and just orchestration of this incredibly powerful music. And there you are in the audience with, you know, hundreds or thousands of people just moving to this music in synchronicity, and it has that feeling, with the perennial philosophers we're talking about, that profound sense and experience of self-expression, that just amazing experience of something larger moving through you, and you participating in the experience, the creation of that. I mean, what would the experience be without that audience there? It's like having all these people being in this sort of rapture. The rapture of cataclysm is incredible, and that's something that I absolutely love about it. And so tomorrow night I'm going to go see them, and I'm just really excited to be it. I haven't seen Bassnectar in almost 2 years now, and I listen to the music on almost a daily basis. Like I said, there's just something about it, and you know, I've tried to name it as best I can, but there's just something really healing and grounding for me to hear this music that is so high energy and so powerful. So for all of those, you know, in the Bay Area, I hope you get to go out and experience it. The Bay Area Vibez Festival. It's going to be a beautiful venue way in West Oakland, looking over the bay and the San Francisco skyline and the Bay Bridge. I'm so excited for the venue itself. And feels good just to be having this person who's had such a profound effect on me being back in his home region doing this performance at this beautiful time of the year, Indian summer. So I hope this has been useful to you. I would love to hear your comments in terms of how music has affected your life. If you're a Bassnectar fan, I would love to hear about your experience of listening to his music. And I'd also like to hear about these experiences of self-expression that maybe don't have anything to do with music. Maybe they come through, again, some athletic thing that you do. Perhaps they come from a craft that you work in where you just enter into that zone flow. You know, often mechanics do that when they're solving a problem and working with, you know, that place of one problem solving, but not doing it in a way that's habitual, just really kind of getting into and empathizing with whatever they're working with, be it an engine or a carburetor or, you know, some sort of electronic thing. All these things require us to sort of transcend what we knew before and enter into that awareness, that profound awareness, that self-awareness, I should say, that's always already available. So please, let me know what you think about that. Again, this is Austin Hillshaw, founder of Creativity Matters and author of The Shoreline of Wonder, reminding you to connect deeply, to make a difference, and to inspire creativity in others. I hope to see you out there on the dance floor tomorrow night at the Bay Area Vibez Festival. Thank you so much.